Let's try this again, everybody. Apologies for the last stream crapping out on us. What's new? I have been doing my best to figure out what the issue is. I think we're at the bottom of it. Finally, I've said that a million times, but we are back. Appreciate you guys for the patience. Thank you so much. Again, I apologize, and hopefully we could get back into the flow of things here. But we were talking MLB winter meetings, day one recap. Really not a whole lot going on there. We talked about the Mets' interest in Kyle Schwarber, how that will impact the potential return of Pete Alonso. And then just at the buzzer beater, right before we started to have our issues, Armand, who is here again, thank you, Armand, mentioned that Joel Sherman reported that the Mets are interested in Trevor Megill. So they have reached out to the Brewers regarding Megill. And this is, again, something I said in the first stream that I've talked about before in relation to, of course, the Freddie Peralta trade. Would there be a way that the Mets might be able to get both of them in a trade for a Milwaukee team that is looking to shed payroll, where Peralta's getting $8 million from the club option that the Brewers just exercised on him? Trevor Megill is, I believe, just going through arbitration for the first time, and I believe is getting paid about $7.5 million this upcoming season. So peanuts to us as Mets fans, to teams in big markets like ourselves or the Yankees or the Phillies or the Dodgers. But Milwaukee, for whatever reason, doesn't think they can operate under those numbers. So the Mets might be the beneficiary of it if they're able to pull something off. So Trevor Megill, definitely an interesting name. And let me now do what I was trying to do right before we crapped out on the last stream, and that was take a look at Trevor Megill's numbers, and they were excellent. He assumed the closer role for the Brewers this past season, and I believe had about 30 saves for Milwaukee down the stretch. Was tremendous toward the end of the season, and then in the postseason for them, of course, they were able to beat the Cubs in a 5-game series in the NLDS before getting swept by the Dodgers in 4 in the National League Championship Series. But you can see right here, Megill with excellent numbers, 2.49 earned run average over 47 innings pitched. Whip, a little bit higher than you might like it for a closer, or at least for one of your back-end guys in the bullpen at 1.2, but not terrible. His career whip is 1.3, so this was actually a significant improvement for Megill in 2025 compared to what he has done throughout the rest of his career. But I mean, this would be an absolute just steal if the Mets were able to get Tylor's brother, Trevor. And I think it's very obvious that Trevor Tylor, has had a much better career than the Mets version of Megill to this point. Not to disparage Tylor, but obviously there have been consistency issues. There always seems to be an injury. He starts out April and May really strong the first, 7-8 times through the rotation. Then he starts to fizzle out. Then he gets injured. And that was the exact same thing that played out in 2025. But Trevor Megill is a elite back-end reliever, and for the Mets to have interest in him, that is something that really, really gets me excited. So let me actually just see what Joel Sherman had to say specifically about the Mets' interest in Trevor Megill. So I believe he said that they have reached out to the Brewers regarding him, and I have to believe that it must be a part of a bigger deal that may also include Freddie Peralta, which, I mean, that is like two of the biggest things you need to get done this offseason if you're the Mets. You need to get that frontline starter for the top of the rotation. Check that off with Freddie Peralta. And then you have to find a replacement for Edwin Diaz if he's not going to bring his demands down. Check that off with Devin Williams and with Trevor Megill. So I love this idea. I don't know if it's going to happen, obviously. This is the first that we're hearing about it. I did mention it in my Freddie Peralta trade proposal video. For those of you that don't have New York Sports Plus, I do. So you're welcome. Let's take a look and read what Joel Sherman had to say about the Mets reaching out to Milwaukee regarding Trevor Megill. Yes, the Brewers are open for business on starter Freddie Peralta if a suitor is willing to meet a steep price for their ace. Now, what are we talking steep? Because, again, he is extremely affordable in terms of his actual contract value, $8 million on this club option, but he's 30 years old, and he only has this 1 year remaining of control where he will test free agency next year. So what's expensive when he says a trade return in terms of prospects? Are you asking for Jonah Tong and Jet Williams? Because that is an absolute non-starter. In fact, I'm not trading Jonah Tong to Milwaukee, period. It's just not happening. I'm not trading him within the National League, and I'm not trading him for Peralta, who only has 1 year of control. Tariq Skubal, a little bit different because he is a back-to-back Cy Young winner, and because the Tigers are in the American League, it would sting a little bit less. But Tong, for me, to the Brewers, is basically a non-starter for me. Let's see. He says McGill, older brother of the Mets, Tyler McGill, has become top flight reliever since being obtained by the Brewers from the Twins in 2023. 3.23 ERA in 129 games. Let's see. This is in regards to 32-year-old righty. He had 2.49 earned run average in 50 regular season games last year and a 2.09 batting average. What does that mean? 2.09 batting? Did they mean a 209 batting average? Come on, Joel. Proofread your stuff here. Yeah, so this is just an article. I'm not going to go much more into that because it doesn't really tell us anything. But Mets Twitter is popping off with trade proposals, with all kinds of stuff. I actually really like this one from Sleeper Mets. So let's go through this trade proposal, and then we can go back to the MLB trade value proposals that we were going through as well before hearing this news. Real quick, Armand says, per Spotrac, McGill is in arbitration 2 and is estimated to make $6.5 million. Okay, so about $1 million less than what I thought. I thought he was in ARB 1. He was due $7.5 million, but arbitration year 2, and he's due $6.5 million. Again, peanuts for the Mets, peanuts for any team that, actually is willing to field a team using their money. But for the Brewers, it's too much. And the same for their $8 million with Freddie Peralta. The Peralta one, I understand. Look, they have to operate within their limitations financially. But $8 million for one of the, I would argue, top 25 at minimum starting pitchers in baseball, and Freddie Peralta, I get it. They want to cash in before he hits free agency, and they realize, yeah, we can't re-sign him, or they understand already they can't re-sign him. But here's a trade proposal from Sleeper Mets. And I don't know. Let's go through this. You let me know what you guys think. The Mets get Freddie Peralta and Trevor McGill, and in return, the Mets are going to send Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, Ryan Clifford, and Ronnie Mauricio. I don't hate it. I got to be honest. I don't hate it at all. I said in the last stream, Jet Williams could be a nice player. I am willing to part with him. I just am. I don't think he's ever going to become an impact player, hit for enough power, hit enough balls out of the yard. I don't know what position he's going to be. They say second base. They say he can play some outfield. I'm willing to part with Jet Williams. Brandon Sproat, I think, higher on Brandon Sproat than I think a lot of Mets fans are. But I saw some pretty impressive poise for him last year. I know it was only 5 starts. I know they weren't all great, but I loved what he did against the Rangers in that second start of his career. The one in Cincinnati, he did pretty well. Got absolutely no run support in a Sunday rubber game against the Reds. And overall, I thought he handled himself pretty well, even in that opening game of the final series of the weekend down in Miami. He got a couple of balls down the line that just found some chalk and maybe a few inches to the right, and he'd be, getting out of that inning unscathed. But I like Sproat. I think he has the ceiling of a number 2, but at worst, I could see him being a very valuable number 3, number 4 in a rotation. Ryan Clifford, the potential heir apparent to Pete Alonso. If the Mets are really thinking they're not going to re-sign Pete and they are going to go for a guy like Kyle Schwarber to replace his offensive production in the lineup, well, then Ryan Clifford would likely be your first baseman either now or not too distant future. So I like Clifford, but again, prospects are suspect. So I am not clinging to any of these guys. None of these are surefire, no doubt going to be definitive MLB difference makers. And then there's Ronnie Mauricio, who I have floated in a lot of trade proposals this offseason just because, look, unfortunately, the timing just seems terrible for Ronnie and the Mets. He comes off the torn ACL. He's delayed in getting rehabbed and doesn't make it back in 2024 at all. 2025, he's delayed again, only gets about a week of at-bats in AAA before the Mets rush Mauricio up to the big league roster because Jesse Winker went down with his initial oblique injury. And he really kind of rode the pine in the final 2 months of the season. Barely got any play. We saw a lot of holes in his swing, a lot of chase. I mean, the guy never had an on-base percentage above 300 in any of his minor league seasons. Even when he was a top 50 prospect in all of baseball, there were red flags about Ronnie Mauricio. And this is not me saying he's terrible and he's awful and I want him gone and he's worthless. I still hold out some hope that Mauricio could be a really good MLB player. But I'm willing to part with him. And honestly, yes, I sign off on this deal. We're talking about 1 year of Freddie Peralta, a guy who I have said for a long time now, I think could be in line to sign a contract extension. And here are the quick reasons why. 1, he's 30 years old. He'll be entering his age 31 season in 2027 with the potential lockout looming. Doesn't seem like a great idea. Doesn't seem like a great idea to have no job, essentially, going into the lockout entering it at age 31 as a free agent, I think the Mets could get a relatively team-friendly deal with Freddie Peralta. And in the conversation I had with Will Salmon, hopefully you guys were able to watch that video, I brought that idea up to him, and he said, yeah, I don't think it's a terrible suggestion, but one thing to note is that Peralta already signed a very team-friendly contract with the Brewers, and that's the last year of it here where they're exercising this $8 million club option. So he may be a little wary of that just because obviously he's been pitching at an undervalued payment for the last couple of years based on his performance. But that all being said, job security, entering that lockout, being 31, potentially testing the free agent waters. I think it's going to really matter what Framber Valdez gets this offseason at age 32. And if Framber gets a good deal at that age, I think they're pretty comparable pitchers. And then maybe Freddie would want to test free agents. But then in terms of Trevor McGill, he's just entering arbitration year 2. I believe that means he has this upcoming season plus 2027, and then he would be a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see on a Baseball Reference. He would be a free agent after the 2027 season, if I'm reading this correct. It says free agent 2028. I don't know if that means after the 2028 season or after the 2027 season. Spotrac would probably be the better way for me to figure this out real quick. But thank you all for tuning back in. I'm really sorry for the last stream, but glad that you guys are back in here. Leave this video a like if you've not already. Really appreciate that. Send this to a friend that's a Mets fan, your family, your mom, your dad, your cousins, your brothers, sisters, whoever's a Mets fan. Really appreciate it. Trying to get up to that 4,000 subscriber mark by the end of 2025. Santa, that would be a great gift. Thank you. Let's go to the chat real quick before we take a look here at Trevor McGill for Spotrac. Armand, always popping off, my man. Says, Tony, are you taking on callers for Discord tonight? I wasn't planning on it. Honestly, I think we're going to avoid that tonight just because of all the issues we were having before. I have everything working now. It's when I have too many programs running on my computer at the same time that it starts to crap out again. So until I have everything ironed out, I'm going to wait on Discord. But Armand, I really want you to get in on this because you're one of the best fans that we have here on the channel. Always know what you're talking about. So here's my promise to you. The next time I go live, we will have a Discord phone call. So apologize for that, but really appreciate you tuning in, bringing it up. And yes, we will have it for next time. That is my promise to you, Armand. Let's see. He also says, I don't hate it. Would do an extension for Peralta if a extension came for Peralta as well. Absolutely. I mean, that extension makes this an absolute slam dunk no-brainer. And I'm a fan of Peralta. I've said it all offseason, guys. He is the guy that I would want the Mets to focus on more than anyone else, more than Framber Valdez, more than Ranger Suarez. It was more than Dylan Cease before he signed with Toronto. Freddie Peralta is the guy that I want the Mets to key in on. Again, I think he could come relatively cheap compared to what the rest of the free agent market's going to get. I think that those pieces that were just listed in that hypothetical trade from Sleeper here, Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, Ryan Clifford, and Ronnie Mauricio, to also get Trevor McGill is more than fair. More than fair. And if you could get an extension done for Freddie Peralta as well, slam dunk of a deal, in my opinion. So McGill free agent after the 2027 season. So he would be under control for this season. And then for 2027, if there is a baseball season, see how the CBA lockout works. And yeah, I am a big fan of that proposed deal there. But let's see. Henry Campo says, I like the trade, but I would need to sign Pete to secure first base for at least the next 3 to 4 years. Well, I agree with that. They are separate issues, obviously. This is purely to get your ace for the top of the rotation that you pair with Nolan McLean. I mean, that is a really impressive 1-2 punch if everything, goes the way that it should on paper. And then you get an elite reliever in the back of the pen that still doesn't necessarily eliminate you from going and re-signing Edwin Diaz too. I mean, we're talking $8 million for Williams this year, plus $6.5 million for Trevor McGill. It's really not much out of the Mets' pocket. $14.5 million for 2026. The Mets still could go re-sign Edwin Diaz. And then on the Pete Alonso front, no doubt, they could still be in play for him as well, or really anybody. This doesn't move the needle in any direction. I mean, Mets are going to be over the luxury tax. It's basically definitive at this point, and I would imagine for many years moving forward, They moved the Nimmo contract, and yes, they brought on the Simeon one for the next 3 years, but down the line, far more payroll flexibility now without having Nimmo for the final 2 years of that contract once Simeon clears the book. So I think it's possible, Henry, that the Mets could do this kind of deal for Trevor McGill and Freddie Peralta while still having the ability to re-sign Pete Alonso. So yeah, I definitely think so. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time reading the name. Ernest, what is up? Mets already said who will sign? I don't know if I understand what you're commenting. Mets already said who will sign? I don't know. I don't know what that comment means, if I'm being honest with you. Henry, I meant it since we are losing Clifford. I see what you mean. Okay, right. So if the Mets traded Clifford in that deal, who, like I said, is, the heir apparent to be the Mets' next first baseman when Pete is gone, whether it's this year, next couple years down the line, then yes, the Mets would definitely have to have a firm plan at first base with Clifford out of the organization. We have heard Ryan O'Hearn's name thrown out. He's not a sexy name, but guy plays good defense at first, plays the corner outfield positions. He is essentially like a Cody Bellinger light. I wouldn't hate that. Problem is he's left-handed. That's already getting lefty heavy. And if you add Carson Bench into the fold as well, whether he's opening day center fielder or not, the Mets are expecting him to get a lot of at-bats this year at the big league level if everything goes to plan. And that's another left-hand. Ryan O'Hearn maybe doesn't fit the mold as much as I was hoping that he would, just given the amount of lefties and righties that they have on the MLB roster at the So if it's not Pete, Henry, who would you be okay with taking over at first base? In this hypothetical trade, Mets send off Ryan Clifford. Pete Alonso decides he's going to take his talents to Baltimore or up to Boston. Who would you be okay with becoming the Mets' next first baseman? The same applies to Cody Bellinger, although I think he's a better hitter, obviously, than Ryan O'Hearn is, and also a better defender that can also play center field until Benj is ready. But again, another left hand. So the Mets really want to have strike that balance of not being too lefty or righty heavy, but also having enough defensive versatility and having enough numbers to make up for what might be going out the window if Pete does in fact leave town. So Henry says, how about a sneaking signing of Luis Arraez to play first base? I love Luis Arraez because I still value batting average. Okay, so I like Luis Arraez. Unfortunately, I don't think baseball loves Luis Arraez because he really only does one thing, and that is hit for a decent average. Really, actually, a good average, a great one comparatively to the rest of baseball these days. He's a horrid defender. It would go against everything that David Stern said in his run prevention saga in terms of getting better at first base. In terms of, hey, if Pete's back, he's going to have to DH more often because we want to improve the defense. He is not a good defender, and he doesn't hit for enough pop either. So I don't think Luis Arraez is going to be a fit for the Mets. As much as I like the batting average and, the old school kind of thing, I don't think he's going to be a good fit. At least not for me, and I think I speak probably for David Stearns too with Luis Arraez, but not a bad suggestion by any means. All right, why don't we do this? Refresh Twitter. Let's see if we got any new updates on any deals or rumors or anything like that. Haven't heard much. Mackenzie Gore pinstripes, anybody? How about that Yankee fangirl that was in our last stream? I was like, is this the stream only about the Mets? Like, kinda, yeah. Like, have you seen any of my channel? Did you see the thumbnail? Like, come on, get with it, girl. She's nice though, I guess. Whatever. All right. Doesn't look like we have anything, but I know Armand will stay on top of it if something does need to be brought to my attention. I'm not putting that onus on you, but I know you will because you're the man, Armand. But let's do this. Let's go back to baseball trade values and take a look at some more of the trade proposals. So we saw the one for Nick Pivetta earlier that included Jake Cronenworth. Now, this one is pretty spicy, and it's not happening. Look, it's already basically been debunked. The Padres, yes, they are going through this really crazy time with the changing of ownership, the passing of their previous owner, and it's a fight between the wife and the brothers of the owner that passed, but they are not going to trade Fernando Tatis Jr. It's just not going to happen, at least from everything we have heard to this point. Let's see the trade out anyway, though, right? So the Mets get Nick Pivetta, who we discussed. 1 year left, 3 really, but an opt-out after this one and an opt-out after next season with escalating salaries. $14 million due in 2027, $18 million due in 2028. I like the idea of Pivetta. That is something to be a little fearful of. But if you're going to also get Fernando Tatis Jr. in this deal, my goodness. Okay, so Mets get Pivetta, Tatis Jr. The Mets send back Ronnie Mauricio, Ryan Clifford, Jet Williams, AJ Ewing, and Brandon Sproat. This is an awful trade. I mean, for the Padres, obviously. I do this trade 10 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday. I mean, you could even see the total value. The Mets are getting 103. The Padres are getting 76.5. It's not even close. Okay, so this one I wish I didn't even bring up and go over with you guys because it is so lopsided. The only thing that really is good for the Padres, yeah, they get a couple interesting names, Ewing, Williams, Clifford. What happens with Ronnie Mauricio? Who knows? But they also get that payroll relief in terms of getting Pivetta and Tatis Jr. off the books. It's not happening. This is never going to happen in a million years. The Padres would be crazy to make this trade, to not demand Jonah Tong in this deal and, you know, replace Mauricio with somebody else. It's just not going to happen. So that one was not as interesting. This is another one for Pivetta. I'm not going to go into it, but just on the surface, Luis Angel Acuna, Jonathan Santucci, and Will Watson. So two of the Mets pitching prospects that are on the rise, and then Luis Angel Acuna, who still has decent value. I don't hate it. I really don't. Pivetta's deal, like I said, is kind of intriguing. It could be either a boon or it could kind of be a real thorn in their side if things don't go well. He gets injured. He has a bad year. He keeps opting in and getting higher and higher salaries. It could be like a Frankie Montas situation again. So a little fearful of it, but I won't go too deep into that one. Now, here's one that's pretty interesting because we talked about Mackenzie Gore earlier, and there were rumors that the Yankees are interested in signing Mackenzie Gore. I said it. I am not interested in Gore. I think, one, he has not lived up to his hype at all. He's 28 years old with 2 years of control, and the Mets really need sure things at this point in their rotation, and he's no sure thing. And number two, the Nationals are going to tax the Mets to death for an in-division trade. But this trade proposal, relatively equal. The Mets are sending Ronnie Mauricio, AJ Ewing, Brandon Sproat, and Jack Weniger to the Nationals for Mackenzie Gore. Just like I said, on the surface, I'm just not interested in Gore. Again, 2 years of control, has not lived up to the hype as a former third overall pick, as a guy that was supposed to be the anchor of a rotation. It just doesn't work for me. Look, the name's going back. AJ Ewing is someone that a lot of people are high on. I am going to be totally honest. I've never actually watched the guy play. I've only looked at his numbers. He could be a guy that comes up and is an impact player. But then you got Brandon Sproat, like I've said before, number 2 ceiling, in my opinion, probably going to end up more like a 4. And then you have Jack Weniger, who has some hype, came out of Illinois, was a later round draft pick, and really is just a 2-pitch pitcher right now. A splitter and a fastball, if I'm not mistaken. So he's trying to develop another pitcher too. Some, mixed success, mixed results on that front. I'm okay with parting with Weniger. I just don't like Mackenzie Gore. So for me, I would say no to this trade. What do you guys think? Would you do that trade for Gore? I mean, I just feel like you add Gore to this rotation, and do you feel all that much better about it? A guy with a 4.19 earned run average over his career, a guy that was traded, of course, for Juan Soto when they sent him from San Diego back to Washington, but has pretty much just been a very middle-of-the-pack number 3 type pitcher. I mean, I feel like the Mets have a glut of those already with Senga and Peterson and Sean Manaea, who at this point I kind of have to consider as a number 3 based on what we saw this past year, given the injuries and then, the underperformance that he had in the second half. So this one doesn't really do it for me, if I'm being honest. Let me go to the chat. Armand says Tatis only gets traded when new ownership comes in and says to the front office to clean up payroll books and trade Tatis. Yeah. I mean, I feel that same way. If you're going to buy something, you want to buy it on its face value. And yeah, they would assume, obviously, those future debts of payroll, right? What they're supposed to pay. They understand that when they purchase a team, but it could be a big change. You trade away the face of the franchise and Fernando Tatis. Your actual value of the franchise isn't going to go down by much, but is your fan base going to be irritated? Or are you going to start getting hit at the gates at your games because you're not drawing as many fans? I mean, absolutely. TV deals, commercial deals, it's all going to go down if you trade Tatis Jr. So I would imagine that the trade would not happen until the actual sale of the San Diego Padres. Good point there, Armand. He says bench and Tong would have to be added to that package. Totally agree. Like I said, that package here that we were talking about is so lopsided, so one-sided toward the Mets. I mean, like I said, I would do this trade 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000, but this is not something that the Padres, I don't think, would pull the trigger on unless they got very desperate for shedding payroll. At this point, while we've heard some murmurings of it, they do not seem to be in that desperation mode quite yet, at least. So there is a better chance the Mets and the Marlins make a trade than the Mets and the Nats. I don't know. Why do you say that? I don't feel one way or the other about it, but I feel like it's equally as difficult. I feel like the Marlins are closer to competing than the Nationals. So I feel like the Mets would be able to definitely pick some pieces off of the Nationals roster if they found any interest in them. But in terms of the Marlins, you know, I mean, hey, they were one of the better teams in the second half last year, far better than the Mets, and they showed it those final couple series against them. So I feel like it might be more difficult to trade with the Marlins than it would be with the Nationals now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more. But either way, in-division trades, always difficult. This is not Carlos Delgado for Mike Jacobs like it was back in the day with the then Florida Marlins. What a trade that was. But yeah, it always gets very sticky and kind of difficult to trade with a division rival. Let's go to this one here now. This is one that we've heard a lot about, obviously. Luis Robert Jr., pretty much going back to the deadline. The Mets were interested in Luis Robert Jr. The Phillies were interested. Many teams were looking to acquire Robert. And he ended up, geez, this Eagles-Chargers game is ridiculous. Every time I look up, it's an interception. This is insane. But Luis Robert Jr. coming back to the Mets, where they send Luis Angel Acuna back to Chicago. And this trade actually comes out pretty evenly, where the White Sox are actually, according to baseball trade values, does a little bit better with a 9.1 total value, where the Mets get 8.7. Part of that is because Luis Robert Jr. has a negative 5.1 value. That because he has a $20 million contract for the 2026 season. But the Mets would also get two guys who I've not heard of before. So let's actually take a look at them. Grant Taylor and Sam Antonacci. All right, Grant Taylor with the White Sox. I've not heard of him before, but let's take a look. He is a pitcher, so we know that now. A career .491 earned run average in 36 2/3 innings. And it looks like he just made his MLB debut this past season. So he is brand new, green at the ears, no doubt about it. I don't know anything else other than that. A 1.4 whip during that time. So under team control through 2032. He was a former second-round pick, though, in 2023. So that is very interesting. I wonder if he was previously one of their top prospects at any time. I don't know. I'm going to just take a quick look. White Sox top prospects. He may still be listed, at least on MLB.com's. But, I mean, a former second-round pick, you would imagine that this guy at some point was pretty highly touted. I mean, I don't know who this guy was a fan of that proposed this trade, Luis Angel Acuna for Robert Jr., Grant Taylor, and Sam Antonacci. I've not heard of Sam Antonacci, but he's listed as their 11th overall prospect. So I'm leaning toward the yes on this trade without even knowing the full details. That's right, Armand. The Mets also got Paul LaDuca in that deal, Captain Redass, when they acquired Carlos Delgado from Mike Jacobs back after the 2005 season. What a trade that was. And the Mets were interested in signing Delgado the previous offseason, but I guess he chose Miami for whatever reason. But obviously the Mets had landed Pedro, and I think did the Marlins trade for him that year? Can't remember. I think the Marlins may have traded for him from Toronto, unless they signed him as a free agent. I don't know. It's ancient history now, right? Anyway, Sam Antonacci, 11th overall prospect for the A's. He is a second baseman and a third baseman. Not expected to make his MLB debut until 2027, but a hit grade of 55. Power is not very much on display, 35, so that's not great, but looks like a good fielder. Arm 50, and his field grade is 50, and this is out of 60, I believe, is how they work it. So played in single A last year and then got some time in double A, hit 296, a 435 on base percentage in 49 games at double A. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm very interested. 21 stolen bases. Jeez. Oh my goodness. Sam Antonacci, no doubt about it. I like that deal. So without knowing too much about either of these two prospects, yes, I do it. I'll take the $20 million due to Luis Robert, and 100% will pay that. That's your guy that you hope that him and Tyrone Taylor can split time in center field until Benj is ready. We also heard that from David Stearns that the Mets may use Benj in left field this season as well. And as it stands right now, the Mets are going to need a left fielder. So, I mean, is it possible you go this route where you have Luis Robert in center, Tyrone Taylor in left, or vice versa until Benj is ready? I mean, yeah, but you better be re-signing Pete in that situation and potentially also signing Kyle Schwarber to be your permanent DH, because you really are losing a lot of firepower by trading Nimmo's 25 homers and 90 plus RBIs, and then the potential idea of losing all of Pete's numbers as well. So you could go the defensive route, get Luis Robert Jr. and put him in left or center and Tyrone Taylor in the other position until Benj is ready. But I mean, yeah, I'm A-okay with this trade. I mean, I like Luis Angel Acuna. I like the defensive versatility he brings all around the infield and even center field to a degree. But if you tell me you're going to get this kid, Sam Antonacci, who's looking pretty impressive down in Double-A for the White Sox as their number 11 overall prospect, and then you're also going to tell me that we're going to get Grant Taylor, who was a former second-round pick that just made his MLB debut as a reliever this past season. Yeah, this is a slam dunk for me. Again, I wonder if this was a Mets or a White Sox fan that made this trade. I would have to think a Mets fan, because this seems very, very favorable to the Mets. But let me go to the chat. Armand, White Sox played themselves by not trading Robert at the deadline. Look, they asked for the world for Robert, and that's why he didn't get dealt. Will filled me in a little bit in our conversation the other day. The Mets were interested. The Phillies were interested. I mean, almost every playoff team that was seeking some form of outfield help, center field or otherwise, called the White Sox, and their asking price was enormous. Now he's due $20 million this year. Is Robert Jr. going to play like a $20 million a year player? Probably not. We've seen this over the last 2 years. You can look at his 6-week stats. Look at them for 6 weeks. He's hitting 125 with an OBP below 200. And then for the next 6 weeks, he's hitting 270 with an on-base percentage near 400 and 4 home runs. I don't know who Luis Robert Jr. is. I know he brings a tremendous glove in center field, but as a stopgap, this is what Steve Cohen and his financial muscle brings to the Mets. They have that luxury that they can say, yeah, he's pretty one-dimensional. He's very expensive, but it's only 1 year, and there's really no such thing as a bad 1-year contract. The Mets can afford it. So I don't hate it at all. I don't see the Sox doing that trade, adding Taylor and Tanacci. Yeah, I agree with you, Armand. I really don't think so either. That seemed like it was made by a Mets fan, because I don't see how that would work. Let's take a look at this Mets-Royals one before we go and look at this 3-team trade with the Mets, D-backs, and Red Sox. But this one is crazy. This, again, has to be another Mets fan. But the Mets getting Maikel Garcia and Angel Zerpa. Really, all you need to know is Maikel Garcia, who is turning into one of the best third basemen in baseball. Had a WAR of 5.8 last year. Gold Glover at the hot corner. Power threat. Can run. I don't see how in any world the Royals would ever trade this guy. So I'm already very suspicious that a Mets fan made this. But in return, the Mets would be sending back Brett Baty, Carson Benj, and Jonathan Santucci. This is a definitive yes for me. I've made my feelings on Brett Baty very clear. I just don't trust him. I just don't. He has had every opportunity since 2022 to seize the third base position and has failed to do so. And finally this year, he put together a modicum of consistency and actually looked pretty good for the longest stretch that we've ever seen Brett Baty actually look like a former first-round pick. And while I'm happy about that, I still can't trust him. And I just can't trust that he's going to go out and not turn back into the guy that is teetering on the edge of being a AAA reassignment again, like he has so many times over the past couple of years. So if you can cash in on Brett Baty having a really strong second half in the right deal, I do it. And as far as Benj, I said earlier in my previous stream, he's about as untouchable a prospect as I have of anyone else in the Mets system. But for this deal, Maikel Garcia, who is looking like a proven superstar in the making at third base, a position that has basically been a turnstile of crap
for the Mets ever since David Wright retired, and really even 2 to 3 years before that when he was dealing with his back injuries and spinal stenosis. Yes, definitively, absolutely, yes, I would do this trade to get Maikel Garcia. It's not happening, okay? They are not trading Maikel Garcia. The Royals easily have the best left side of the infield in all of baseball in the form of him and Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop, both Gold Glovers, both 20 to 25, even 30 home run bats that are going to compete for Silver Slugger awards for many years. So as much as I love the trade, I don't think Royal fans would love the trade. As far as Jonathan Santucci, he's an interesting arm. So don't get me wrong. It's not like the Mets are stealing him from Kansas City. I just don't see how they're going to trade Garcia, and rightfully so. Armand says Garcia and Zerpa for Beatty and Santucci I would prefer. Yeah, well, I don't think that would be enough. And honestly, I don't even think that this trade would be enough as it is with Bench. I agree. Obviously, I don't want to trade Carson Bench either, but I don't know if this is even enough given what Garcia just did. And if you guys aren't familiar, I'll really quick show you what he just did this past season with the Royals, where, I mean, wow, he was impressive. 286 average. I know some people don't care about batting average, but had an 800 OPS plus of 123, slugged 16 home runs, and drove in 74 RBIs, finished 14th in MVP voting, was an all-star for the first time, and like I said, won a Gold Glove. So Maikel Garcia, to me, is just not available. There's no way. He is under team control for 3 more years until he's a free agent after the 2029 season. So I guess that's 4 years, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. So 4 more years. If I was the Mets and they actually could pull off this trade for him at 25 years old, I would be doing the Ronald Acuna route and giving this guy a friendly extension as early as I possibly could. But again, I don't think it's realistic. I don't see the Royals actually being willing to trade him, but an interesting idea nonetheless, right? Let's take a look at this one now. 3-team trade between the Mets, Red Sox, and the Diamondbacks. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I want Jarren Duran in this trade, so I kind of hate it right off the bat, but it kind of makes sense for the Mets when you think about it here. So Red Sox are getting Ketel Marte. Obviously, they're getting the big prize of this trade. They get him. They plug him in at second base. They are sending Jarren Duran from that surplus of outfielders that they have out there. The Mets are also going to have to send David Peterson, who has 1 year remaining under his contract, to Arizona. And then the Red Sox will send Boston Barrow and Justin Gonzalez over to Arizona as well. And in return, the Mets get Alek Thomas and they add Garrett Whitlock to their rotation. This just doesn't really move the needle for me. Does it make sense for the Mets? Yes, they're getting a starter who has been promising in the past. I believe that he missed some time recently. He is under team control. He signed a 4-year extension that bought him out from 2023 through 2026 for $18.75 million, and has a team option for 2027 and 2028. So we're talking about a young, controllable starter. I mean, young-ish. He's 29 years old. He'll turn 30 in June. I don't hate it. Whitlock had a really solid start to his career in Boston. He was actually a reliever, when he first came up. Got some time as a starter in 2022 and 2023, and really has only been a reliever now over the past year or two. So I apologize. I really haven't kept up with Boston all that much. Yeah, turned reliever. Thank you, Armand. I didn't realize he had turned into a reliever. He's turned into an excellent one, clearly a 2.25 ERA and even better FIP at 2.18. But, for me, I don't know. I mean, first of all, we're talking about the potential of trading for Trevor McGill. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I would wager to say it probably won't happen, but Edwin Diaz is still out there. Robert Suarez is still out there. Pete Fairbanks is still out there. So unless there's a connected move coming after this where the Mets are going to replace David Peterson in the rotation, I don't know if it really works. I mean, we're trading away pretty much from our biggest weakness as it is, that being the starting pitching. So unless you're telling me, well, then they're going to go sign Framber Valdez, as much as I don't love the idea of giving him a 6 or 7 contract, 7-year contract. There's got to be a follow-up move to trading David Peterson out of your rotation. Alek Thomas, meanwhile, let's take a look at what he had going on. He's the outfielder for Arizona. So let's see if he played in any center field for us. That would obviously be the main draw that we would want as a guy to split time with Tyrone Taylor until Carson Bench comes up. I mean, brings nothing with the bat. I mean, career OBP 277, career OPS plus of 76. So, I mean, like probably in the Jake Myers mold, he's probably even worse than Jake Myers, who we know the Mets have been rumored to be interested in. But defensively, let's see if we can find anything on him and if he might be worth that. Under team control through the end of the 2028 season. So that would be nice to at least get a guy and have him for a couple of years. But in the words of Office Space, as I quote here many times, what exactly is it that you do? Because he doesn't hit, that is for sure, evidenced by all the blue on this StatCast page for him. He's a speedster, 75th percentile in speed, but as far as fielding, he really doesn't do a whole lot either. 0 outs above average, 0 arm strength value. So doesn't really do a whole lot for me, honestly, Alec Thomas. I mean, he's a throw-in for whatever reason, whoever made this trade, maybe to even out just the overall value of things, but it doesn't really do anything for me. Let's see what this person commented, actually. Besides Devers, the Sox haven't paid anyone. It's about a Red Sox. All right, forget it. Anyway, yeah, I'm not crazy about that trade. It really is for the benefit of the Red Sox getting Ketel Marte, and I don't think there was a whole lot of care given to the Mets in terms of what they're getting back. Obviously, the D-backs get Jarren Duran, who I would be interested in this deal, and honestly, I would send prospects to Arizona to help mitigate the cost of the Red Sox having to trade any prospects in this deal if I could get my hands on Jarren Duran and put him in left field or even in center field. So this one doesn't really work for me. Definitely not. Reds and Mets. This was an interesting one, and I saw a proposal about this earlier, and it actually does come from a Reds fan. So I think we could give this one a little bit more credence because he's probably looking at it through the lens of a Reds fan, but let's see if it is even both ways. Reds would get Jeff McNeil and pitching prospect Will Watson plus $9 million in cash for Brady Singer. So Singer was in the rotation for the Reds last year. Obviously, the Mets need to improve their rotation, no doubt about it. So what did he do last year? We know he was with the Royals previously when he first began his career and came up, spent last season with the Reds. Back-to-back seasons of a 3.1 wins above replacement mark. This year, not as good as 2024 with Kansas City, his final season there. 3.71 earned run average back in 2024. This past season, a 4.03 earned run average in 2025. But his FIP slightly lower, 3.98. His WHIP, 1.23. But the thing I love about it is just look from 2023 through 2025. 29 starts, 32 starts, 32 starts this past year. I mean, how many guys on the Mets made 30 starts this year? I believe that it was only Clay Holmes, the converted reliever. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe David Peterson as well. I think him and Peterson might have been the only two guys that made 30 starts for the Mets this year. And obviously with some not so great results at different points in the season for each of them. So yeah, he's a middle of the rotation arm. He's not going to blow you away. Does he do it for me, though, in terms of trading Jeff McNeil and getting him out of out of town? That definitely helps it. And even though the Mets have to pay $9 million, that's where I kind of have some pause. You want Will Watson, who we'll see what he turns into. A lot of people, like I said in the previous stream, have said that he could be a future closer or a future high-end back of the bullpen reliever. But you also want us to pay down $9 million of Jeff McNeil's contract for what I would call a number 4 in a rotation in the form of Brady Singer, who, oh, by the way, I believe is only under control for this next season. So does it make sense? Yeah, the overall layout of it is, but I'm not also going to pay you to take Jeff McNeil if you want Will Watson when we're only getting a middle of the pack, middle of the rotation kind of guy that only has 1 year of control. That's just not going to work for me. Now, if said Chris Bubich, I'd be much more interested. Bubich has his own issues, missed a lot of time last year with a shoulder injury. None of it was structural, but only has 1 year of control left, like Singer. Before that was pitching like an all-star for the second straight year. In that case, yeah, I'll send Will Watson, Jeff McNeil, and pay down McNeil's contract. Absolutely. But for Singer, not so much. Not as interested in this one. So that's probably a no for me. I'll do one or two more of these guys. I don't know if these are boring to you, which I was on the site earlier. I thought it'd be a cool idea to do a live stream on this. If you guys are enjoying it, I'll do as many as you want. But otherwise, I do want to hear from you guys. Sound off in the chat. How you feeling about this Mets offseason? What do you want to see them do next? Ask me questions. This is an open forum. We're just chatting up Mets, Major League Baseball, first day of MLB winter meeting coming to a close. Singer's estimated to make $13 million. Jeff is due to make $15.75 million. So I would cover more than the difference of $2.75 million, because the Mets would be taking on, the Royals would be taking on the Reds would be taking on $2.75 million more to acquire Jeff McNeil and send Singer back to the Mets. So I would cover that and then even double it or triple it to get it out to like, hey, we'll give you an additional $5 million to Jeff's $15.75 million. So, the total outlay might be like $5 million total, but $9 million. No, I'm not giving. Come on, that ain't happening. I like this. Bubic is on the Royals, not the Reds. No, I understand that. But when I made my Jeff McNeil trade proposal video, one of them was to the Royals and it was for Bubic. And I love the idea of Bubic. It's scary because he only made 20 starts last year. He had the rotator cuff issues, I believe it was, and missed most of the second half. Before that was pitching excellent. He was an all-star in 2024. Royals finally let him just be a starting pitcher, and it looks like he is turning into a good one, but he is also under control for one more year. So I understand he is on the Royals. I was just saying that is one of the trade proposals where I'd be more inclined to do a deal like this, where not only are we paying a significant portion of Jeff McNeil's contract, but also sending a prospect in the form of Will Watson back. So, yeah, in that case, I definitely would need to get something better than Brady Singer. So that's why I brought up Bubic from Kansas City. Let's see. What else? The Pirates. I don't want to talk about that one. Here's another Scooble one. We'll just go real quick. Tariq Skubal to the Mets. In return, the Mets are sending David Peterson, Brett Beatty, Kodai Senga, Jonah Tong, and Boston Barrow. I don't think the Tigers are doing this. Actually, I know that the Tigers are not doing this. They are not trading the back-to-back Cy Young winner for a couple of spare parts. And yes, admittedly, one of the better prospects in baseball in Jonah Tong. They're not doing it. Okay, like David Peterson has 1 year of control left. And there is the angle of the Tigers were just in Game 5 of the ALDS last year. They want to compete next year with or without Skubal. I understand that. That's when you give them one of those pieces of either Peterson or Senga or Beatty, and then a boatload of impressive prospects. That is the only way the Tigers are going to trade Tariq Skubal. So as much as I love this deal and would do it, it's not realistic. The Tigers would not bite on this. It doesn't even have any money going back from the Mets to the Tigers to cover the cost of Senga and the cost of Peterson for this year, plus Beatty, who I think is arbitration eligible or will be next year. So this one is just unrealistic. I love it as a Mets fan, but it's not going to happen, I don't think. Let's see. I can't read your name. Benjir 3705. This offseason has been slow. It has been. It really has been. Every offseason has been slow over the last couple of years, but this one in particular, I mean, we've had a couple pops with the Mets trading Nimmo and with Cease signing with Toronto, but outside of that, yeah, it has definitely been a slow slog of an offseason once again. I don't know. What do you guys think? Give me a proposal. Give me an idea. Should they institute some type of signing period, kind of like the NFL does? I mean, it's really cool. They own that day or those 2 days where all the free agents in the NFL come off the board and they have a new team. I mean, can you really enforce that on players? It doesn't seem fair to me, at least, but it would definitely generate a lot more interest and talking points around baseball than this whole slow, drawn-out process where we might go past Christmas and many of these guys are not going to have teams. So I want to hear your guys' suggestions if you think there's a better way for them to do it. Now, this is an interesting one. And this one is a lot of well-known names on both sides. Mets and Brewers not involving Trevor McGill, but it does involve Freddie Peralta. But the Brewers are also sending back some names to the Mets in this one. So the Mets get Freddie Peralta. They get William Contreras, Andrew Vaughn, Aaron Ashby. And in return, the Mets send back Francisco Alvarez, Mark Vientos, Luis Angel Acuna, Kodai Senga, and Eli Serrano III. This is a wild trade, okay? I need a second to kind of digest this one. Give me a second. First, let me go back to the comments over here. 3705, I think Stern's game plan is not going to work, being cheap. Although I do think that they should give the young guys a chance to shine, see what they have, rather than give big contracts. I don't know if he's being cheap. I think he's being prudent about things because Steve Cohen himself has said for years now it's not sustainable to continuously hand out millions and millions and millions of dollars to field a team. You know, you look at what the Dodgers have done, and obviously, yeah, they've gone out, they've signed some big name players. They obviously skewed the rules with Ohtani, but don't get me on that topic. But they have supplemented it with homegrown players. They have supplemented it with diamonds in the rough, i.e. in the form of previously Justin Turner, more recently Max Muncy. They had Kike Hernandez, who they developed before. Obviously, he left to go to Boston, returned, and then was a big part of this playoff run. So the Mets need to strike that balance. Every team does. It's very rare now that you just see a team go out, sign all the big name free agents, and go out and win on a year-to-year basis. The Dodgers are close to that, but look at some of the guys they've also traded for. You know, they traded for Mookie Betts because they had a sustainable farm system that could keep regenerating. They traded for what's his name? What am I thinking of? Forget it. Anyway, but yes, of course, obviously they've also signed some big names, but then you also look at who they got behind the plate. One of the better hitters on their team, obviously, in the form of Will Smith, drafted and developed him. Obviously, they signed Freddie Freeman. Yes, they signed Teoscar Hernandez. You know what? I'm kind of starting to take it all back. The Dodgers bought a World Series. F them. I hate the Dodgers. But yes, I hear you, 3705. I don't think Stearns is being cheap. I think he's going through the process with all these guys, with teams seeing what more sense to, you know, give that extra year, give that extra $4 million of AAV to a free agent versus, hey, I could just go trade a couple of prospects I don't see in our future and go get an equally, if not better player for the same position. So it's just how everyone is operating right now, just checking all their boxes, seeing what makes the most sense fiscally and as far as roster management. But hopefully he is not being cheap. Game for War. I got a bad feeling that when a trade is made, I'm going to wish that it had stayed slow and no trades were made at all. Game for War. I feel that. You get that rush when a trade happens. You're like, oh my God, but who's going back? And then you have all these mixed emotions most times, right? Like you're like, oh, but I really didn't want to trade that guy, but I really like the guy we're getting. And then you just get into this whole cycle of people giving opinions online and in papers, and it really gets messy. I totally understand where you're coming from, Game for War. Armand, the winter meetings should be 1 week long and be a deadline for trades. Then free agency starts and freezes on Christmas Eve and day. I like that idea. I do like that idea, Armand. I don't know if the players would ever go for it, though. I don't know how a rule like that is even instituted. I guess it has to be in CBA negotiations, right? It has to be implemented in the collective bargaining agreement. But I like that idea. That would definitely get the offseason rolling a lot faster, no doubt about it. Like I said, you got the NBA and the NFL who, the day free agency begins, it is a whirlwind of boom, 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 stars going here, stars going there, and they're grabbing all the headlines. But baseball is just like, yeah, free agent, minor leaguers signed to invite to spring training. Oh, it's Christmas Eve. None of the big names are off the board yet. So I hear you. That is a good idea, Armand. I like that. Let's see. Tony, I tagged you to a tweet about Scooble. Okay, I'll check that out in a second here. Yeah, we got to have patience. No doubt. We got to have patience. We don't know what Pete's market is at this point. I think he is slow playing it, but I think the Mets having this interest, or at least reported interest in Kyle Schwarber, is kind of given, lighting a little bit of a fire under his ass. I think that's partly why he's driving up to Orlando right now to go speak to the Red Sox in Baltimore's camp. And hopefully, the Mets can figure it out, whether it is with Pete or somebody else. But there are a lot of decisions and moves that need to be made to make this 2026 offseason puzzle work. No doubt about it. Let's see. 3705, the Mets have enough prospect depth to make a major trade without hurting the long-term plan. All reports point to yes. All reports have said the Mets have one of, if not the best farm system, and that it is deep. That it is not just the surface level guys that we see in the top 10 of the Mets, on MLB.com or Baseball America or whatever website you go to check in on their top prospects. But just for simplicity, I'll take you here to the Mets top prospects according to MLB.com, which I usually don't really buy a whole lot of stock into. Definitely not. But Nolan McLean's still listed on here. Whatever. He could be considered still one or not. He's obviously going to start the year in the Mets rotation. Then you got Carson Bench, Jet Williams, Jonah Tong, the usual top tier prospects. I would say that's kind of where it gets cut off. Then you have Sproat, who I think took a little bit of a hit to his stock because he didn't have a great year in AAA. He also did not have a great debut in AAA at the end of 2024. And then he had some varying results in his first 4 or 5 big league starts this year. But again, I still do have some hope for him. Reimer, Ewing, Clifford, those are guys that might fall into the top 5 or top 3 in most other farm systems. And that's without even getting into some of the other big names. I don't know much about Mitch Voigt, so I'm not going to speak to him, but we all know about Elian Pena. He is 18 years old and is drawing comparisons to Juan Soto and Rafael Devers. So he is far, far away. But he is someone that could turn into, just absolutely skyrocket this list by the end of 2026 and be in the top 5 by this time next year. But that's without even mentioning the guys like Will Watson, who we've seen in some trade proposals, Jack Weniger, Jonathan Santucci, Nick Morabito, who, like I said, the Mets protected from the Rule 5 draft by adding him to their 40-man roster. Dylan Ross, who got called up that final weekend in Miami and was scheduled to make a start. I believe it was going to be on the final game of the season that Sunday, but didn't end up making an appearance, I don't believe. I try to put that game out of my memory, right? He didn't end up pitching that day, but 169 earned run average over 28 games in AAA this past season. So there are a lot of very under the radar names that show the depth of the Mets system. So yes, I do believe the Mets have the ability to swing a big trade, whether it's for Skubal, whether it's for Peralta or somebody else, and not decimate the system and not take them off of their long-term plan. 100%. Who it is for, I don't know. Who is going back, I also don't know. But this is the process. And I know we all like to get on David Stearns, and there's some that call him Stingy Stearns and all kinds of different nicknames. But this is what the Mets have been trying to do for years now. Not only under Stearns, but under Steve Cohen. Build that sustainable pipeline of talent in the minor leagues, in the farm system, so the Mets can hopefully have these guys come up, perform for them at a, cheap contract, and then also use these guys to trade and find already proven MLB players to add to their roster as well. And that is exactly how I described the Dodgers just a few moments ago. So, guys, I think what I'm going to do here is go through 1 or 2 more of these trades, and then I think we're going to wrap it up. Again, I apologize for the first stream getting all messy like that, but it looks like this one has been much better. So I appreciate y'all sticking with me and tuning back in. We've been going for an hour on this second one. I didn't even realize, but leave this video a like if you've not already. Share it with a Mets fan in your life. Send it to your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your cousins, whoever is a Mets fan, even if they're not, but just a baseball fan. I really appreciate it. Trying to get to that 4,000 subscriber mark by the end of this year, end of 2025. I only got a few weeks left. You guys have been awesome hitting that sub button. And a big part of it is by leaving likes on these videos, by leaving comments. So thank you to each and every one of you guys for tuning in, being a subscriber, and watching and just talking baseball with me. That's all I wanted to do here when I started this. So I'm really happy to have you all here. Let's go and take a look at 2 more trades. Oh, thank you, Armand. Yes, I'm going to look at the tweet you just tagged me in. Thank you very much for reminding me. All right. So Armand, great follower, great subscriber, always in the chats. And I call him my statistician. He's really my right-hand man here, always keeping me up to date on what's happening while I'm doing these streams. So this is a tweet that Armand just tagged me in from Cody Savenhagen. First, let's take a look. Covering the Detroit Tigers and more stories around Major League Baseball for The Athletic. All right, so obviously a very credible reporter here in Cody. He says, Monday night in a dim room at the Waldorf Astoria with the Epcot theme park glimmering out the window. All right, what is this, romance novel that we're reading here? Come on, let's get to the point, Cody. Detroit Tigers president of baseball operations, Scott Harris, issued his most forthright comments on the Tariq Skubal situation yet. Harris had this to say. in the context of why he'd previously been mum on the decision about whether to trade Skubal in his final year before free agency. Quote, I've been pretty clear since I've been here. I don't believe in untouchables at any level. So anyone in our organization at any level. It's not a commentary on Tariq specifically, sort of a blanket team building approach. I think I can't do my job without listening. I can't do my job without exploring anything that may or may not have legs. Some are maybe very likely moves, and some are going to be extremely unlikely. But you can't actually fully vet those opportunities unless you are willing to listen. So that's how we're doing it. All right. So that is Tigers president of baseball operations, Scott Harris. He doesn't really specifically comment on Tariq Skubal, but he does say Tariq's name specifically right here. So I don't really know fully what to make of that, but we have heard this back and forth of they're not trading Skubal. They are trading Skubal. Now they're not again. And then, well, maybe if we're blown away, it's all kind of writing on the wall to me that he is going to get dealt this offseason. I think it is going to happen. I don't know. We went through some of these trades and we were wondering. Thank you, 3705. I absolutely will. I appreciate you for complimenting my content. I work really hard on it also. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for bringing this to my attention also, Armand. So Cody, I'm actually going to follow this guy because I want to keep up on all this stuff as far as what the Tigers are thinking. They just signed Drew Anderson to a deal today for $7 million and a $10 million club option for 2027. Don't know how that impacts them as far as school. Probably not much. I'm guessing that they want to compete. Like I said, they took it to Game 5 of the ALDS versus the Mariners last year. I'm guessing that they don't want to just fold by trading Skubal and, basically blow it up. They got some young talent there still. So I would think that they probably want to get at least a replacement for Tariq Skubal. There's no replacing the back-to-back AL Cy Young winner, but would Kodai Senga help a little bit where the Mets are paying most of his contract? Or I don't know. I really don't know. If they're looking for a legitimate guy that they can plug in to fill his spot in the rotation, Senga, Peterson, you're probably not going to have any interest in Shamanaya coming off a half a season where he was injured for the first and then terrible for the second half. So I don't know, but it's going to be something to monitor for sure. And you guys know that as soon as any news breaks on the Mets, or even if Skubal gets traded elsewhere, I'll be going live here or posting a video. So this is your place for it all. Thank you, Armand, also sending me this. The Mets, former Padres starting pitcher Michael King appears to be the Mets' top rotation target per Mark Feinsand. Okay, so we heard the Mets actually zoomed with I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind here, guys. I've been going for an hour. Sometimes I just lose words. We know that the Mets Zoomed meeting with Michael King this afternoon. And it's interesting that he might be their top rotation target. He is someone that I've mentioned I would love the Mets to sign. He does not come without some concern. He only made 20 starts this year. He got shut down. He was pitching like an ace for the first 6 weeks of the year, continuing to build off his excellent season in 2024 with the Padres when he fully converted to a starting pitcher after getting traded from the Yankees to San Diego in the Juan Soto deal. But then he had shoulder issues, and that is obviously very concerning, especially for a guy on the wrong side of 30. But, given that he didn't pitch as much as he should have last year, and he does have this injury concern, he is someone that could come a little bit cheaper where, hey, if he pitches like he did prior to the injury, you're looking at a bargain of a deal, say 3 years, $75 million, 3 years, $80 million, and you could really look at that in the same context for Kodai Senga, who basically has that exact same deal, about 3 years left. And I think it's at somewhere around $15 million for each of the next 3 years. So not a whole lot more to get Michael King, who has been excellent in his time with the Padres outside of the injuries when he actually has been on the mound. Let's see. 3705 says, yeah, they'll see what's out there for Tariq. Yeah, I agree. They definitely will. They're going to see what's out there. They're going to listen at the very least. They're going to listen, which is not something that we knew that they were going to do. So I've said it before, guys, where there is smoke, there is fire, and it just keeps billowing higher and higher out there in Detroit, that smoke cloud. So I would not be surprised to see Tariq Skubal traded. Let's see. 3705 King is 50-50. You don't know what you're going to get out of him when he's healthy. He is solid. Exactly. You don't know if he's going to be healthy, but if he is, he should be excellent. I made a joke because in one of his second half starts after returning from that shoulder injury, he pitched against the Mets at Citi Field, and Cedric Mullins took him deep for a homer. I was like, really? I mean, for goodness sake, Cedric Mullins took him deep. We don't want this guy. Come on. Cedric Mullins, one of his 2 Mets home runs came off of Michael King. Can't have him. Can't do it. Jokes aside, I'd be very, very interested. No doubt about it. Thank you, Armand, for sending all these tweets to me. I really appreciate it. Keep me up to date here. Guys, I think what we're going to do here is wrap it up for the night. Again, I am so sorry about the first stream. What a disappointment, but this second one went great. So happy about that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for commenting, for leaving this video a like, and for subscribing. This is your place for daily Mets content, for all the latest updates on their offseason moves this winter. So hit that subscribe button. Share this with a Mets or a baseball fan in your life. Really appreciate it so much. Huge thank you to 3705, to Armand, and to Henry Campos for commenting in this stream. Also to Ernest, and I think that was everyone for this stream. And everyone else, of course, in the previous stream as well. One more at the buzzer here. Joseph Delicato, how you doing? I just tuned in. Seriously, what's this team doing? It's early. It shouldn't be. We're almost a month and a half into the offseason, but it's technically still early. No one else is doing anything. It's an evaluation period. They are talking to other teams. They are talking to other free agents. And they're trying to find out the most prudent way to fill all of their needs, whether it's through free agency or through trade or internal options. So we hate it because it feels like it's dragging on in a slog, but pretty much every team is in the same boat right now. So hang in there, Joseph. This will be your place to find out about all the Mets' latest moves and news. So keep it tuned to the channel, guys. I want to thank you all again. Thank you for subscribing. Let's get to that 4K number by the end of 2025. Can't do it without your guys' help as always. But until next time, I'm Tony Metro. Stay true to the orange.